What's up, book nerds? My name is Tara, and today I'm going to explain where I get my books and how it affects my review process. This video was inspired by Rincey Reads, and she has a video called Let's Talk Full Disclosure that I watched about a week ago, and it was very interesting because while I'm a blogger in the traditional blogosphere, I wasn't aware of all of the most current regulations regarding the Federal Trade Commission and how we are supposed to operate when it comes to sponsored posts and review copies of books and where those all come from. We had this discussion in the blogosphere many years ago, but things have changed a lot since then, and I think that a lot of people aren't actually aware of how prominent this information needs to be in videos and on blog posts. From this point forward, my videos will all have a small disclaimer at the bottom of the screen that will say, I received this book from the publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review, because, full disclosure, most of my books come from publishers. In the book blogosphere, it's pretty common for most bloggers to receive most or some of their books from copies received from publishers, and we have a very close relationship with the publishers. So the issue of integrity is a little bit different because we get a lot of choice in what we pick to review, and it's just so pervasive that people kind of assume a review copy is the default for the source of the book. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't still need to make that very clear on our reviews, but there is that kind of underlying assumption that that's where they come from. However, on BookTube, I feel like the culture is a little bit different. There's a little bit more of a question about where the books are coming from, and also it's a newer medium, so people are not as used to the idea that these books are coming from somewhere other than direct purchases from the money in the booktuber's pocket. And these are things also like sponsored posts or working closely with publishers and getting finished copies for free, things like that. It's a slightly different culture, but they're becoming more and more similar as the years go on. I think a lot of people assume that when you get a review copy, it's coming from a publisher sort of pushing that book on you, like emailing directly and saying, please read and review that book. But it's actually not the case, at least for me. Most of the time I am picking them out of a selection of books that are available for review, and I use sites like NetGalley and Edelweiss, and I am able to look at pretty much a really big variety, thousands of books, and I'm just picking out maybe the 10 or 15 that I'm interested in reading. And most of the times, these are the books that I'm already interested in that are coming out. I'm just able to kind of pinpoint those 6 months ahead of time and get them for review. I also am a professional. I'm a librarian, I'm an educator, and I go to conferences every year where free books are available. I've learned over the years to not just take everything that comes to me. So I pick out things that I've already heard some buzz about or that I know I'm interested in reading, and I take those home and I read them or I don't read them. But with those books, I don't feel any pressure or obligation to read it if it's not something I end up wanting to read. I leave usually with 70 books every year because of the different things I attend, and I read maybe 10 or 15 and then donate the rest to high school classrooms. I can see how a critic from the outside might say that I'm still reading books that are being pushed on me by a publisher, and while that is true, I also say that's exactly what's happening to you when you stand in the aisle at Barnes & Noble. There's pretty much the same books. I'm just having access to those 6 months ahead of time or a year ahead of time. So we are all kind of stuck in the arm of the publishing machine, and things like books by smaller presses or indie authors are a little bit more difficult to publicize and to get into the hands of readers. And so sometimes I might work with smaller authors or indie publishers, but not any more than I would if I was just reading those books or paying for them out of pocket anyway. It's pretty much the same thing on either side of the coin. I also rarely get books just randomly in the mail, and if I do, I never feel any obligation to read them. I know it sounds kind of conceited, but at this point I've received enough in the mail where I just kind of don't feel like I have to do anything with that. I don't feel any sense of obligation because most of the time they're not books that I'm interested in reading anyways, and so I donate them. And the same goes for emails. I get probably an email a day from people asking me to review books. I've actually taken down off of my blog that I'm accepting books for review because I almost never decide to accept the book because they're just not usually things I'm interested in. And so then I usually don't work with the author. So I don't really get books pushed on me directly by a publisher. It's me sorting through a catalog and picking what I want to read. I'm telling you this so you can get a sense of the authenticity of my reviews. I read what I want and I say what I want and I say how I feel, and I never feel any pressure from a publisher to review a book in a certain way just because I received it for free. They honestly don't care about my individual rating, and I know that. But if you feel like knowing that I get my books for free affects your feelings about my reviews and you're very critical of that, then that's absolutely fine and that's totally understandable. You should be critical. You should be asking questions about where your media comes from and where the people that you're watching are getting their content from, even if that person is me. So ask away, and I promise that I'll be transparent in the future about where the source of the material is, and you can feel free to ask me questions or to push back on that at any point if you think that that question needs to be asked. If you're a new vlogger, I do suggest you check out Rincey Reed's video because you actually are responsible for keeping up with those regulations. Even though you may not be receiving review copies yet, it's important information for you to know when that day does come. And it doesn't take very long for that day to come, so you will want to educate yourself on that topic. As always, book nerds, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Psychological horror novels that are way better than those weird, crappy Fear Street novels that we all read as a kid. Bonus that they're also written by a lady. The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier focuses on a chocolate sale at an all-boys private school that is heavily regulated by a very violent secret society.